Wolf, get away from those sheep.
Bollocks.
You're listening to the Wolf and the Shepherd podcast, broadcasting from Fort Worth in the great state of Texas. Now, get ready for this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd.
Welcome to this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd. Today we have with us our good buddy Jay Davis, who was one of our first remote guests a long time ago. And I mean, he's probably sitting here wondering, wait a second, these guys actually cleaned up the room they were in. They're not on goofy little phones and all that stuff. Like they actually look legit now, you know? So Jay, it's really good to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad you guys are healthy, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, we managed to hopefully ride the other side of the COVID wave, but
That's
the way
true.
it's going at the moment, it's looking like a bit of a tsunami coming back the other way. But as we already caught it, we're assuming we're immune.
Well, not only that, but when we heard about the Delta variant, I think the Wolf got a little bit confused because he thought it meant Delta 8.
Yeah.
So he ran to the store real quick and bought a bunch of Delta 8 gummies. I said, no,
Yeah.
that's really not what it is.
Yeah.
Not the same.
I figured 100 milligrams of Delta 8 a day would probably cure COVID if I
That's
was
true.
exposed to it.
Yeah, you got to be careful though. You can't make those assumptions or
No,
whatever. Then you get
damn.
canceled with the false or the false news or whatever it is.
Fake news.
Fake news. There it is.
Fake
There it
news.
is.
So
So
trying to
Jay,
cancel everybody now.
yeah. So Jay, catch us up on what's been going on, man. We hear you have a lot of new projects, and so we wanted to kind of connect and get together with you and get kind of caught up.
Well, yeah. Right now, I've been doing I dabbled into the horror genre. So I've created like 2 new horror series with my buddy Omar, and one's called CCTV. It's a good old fashioned slasher film, and we just shot another short called EYDH. I can't explain what that means now, so that should be coming out. We're gonna release that around Halloween.
Cool, man. I get obviously tagged in a lot of your social media posts on Facebook, and I look at them and I have to figure out how long I can keep them up on my feed because I've got quite a few kids, young teenage kids on my Facebook and their parents and stuff. So I kind of leave it up a few days just so they can get an education, and then I take it down.
Yeah, that's probably smart.
Right.
I think they got to learn somewhere. They may as well learn on my feed from Jay. So
There you go.
Yeah, I've been poking fun at the cancel culture for the last couple of months. So
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that stuff with
dropped-
you on the cancel culture stuff. I mean, I think it was maybe like 5-10 episodes after we interviewed you, we ended up doing a whole episode on cancel culture. I mean, how ridiculous is the cancel culture getting right now?
they tried to cancel Pepe Le Pew. I'm like, all right, enough is enough.
I thought they
you're trying
did
to cancel-
successfully. I thought they did
I
successfully
think they
cancel him.
I think they got it,
Because they
man.
cut him
I
out.
think they got it.
They cut him out of Space Jam, the first movie. Now, when they show it, they cut him out of that, and they won't show his individual
Are you
cartoons
serious?
on. No, so he did officially get cancelled. Yeah,
Oh my
my
God,
brother
that
is fallen,
ridiculous.
man. God.
That is ridiculous.
Well, now
It's
I
like-
kind of support it and I kind of don't because he was always going after cats.
Right.
So I kind of like the fact that
euphemism,
skunks
dude.
going after cats.
Yeah, it's a
and
euphemism.
and
Right.
trying to get rid of cats.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I see what you're
Yeah,
saying there.
yeah.
I get it now.
Exactly.
Yes.
All those years watching the cartoons, and now all of a sudden it just dropped like a ton of bricks on
Right.
me what that actually means.
Yeah. Now you have your own animated series, obviously, which gives you a bit more free range to create some scenarios and shoot in live action. Do you feel there's a lot more you can get away with in animation than you could in, kind of real life?
I do, because the thing is, I tell true stories, and it's like I'm not making none of this stuff up, stuff that actually happened to me. And it's like with animation, you get that pass. They're like, oh yeah, it happened. Like with a Family Guy, they make fun of everybody, and no one's trying to cancel them. So I think animation gives people a pass.
Yeah.
I think they get a little bit of help when you put it into animation because it kind of seems a little more fake. So you can get away with a little bit more, animation wise than you can live action wise.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, you can get away with things.
Right. It softens the blow a
cutting
little bit.
somebody's head off, with a knife or something, or disemboweling somebody in animation, just because it's an exaggerated thing. Whereas it's a little bit more tricky to act out, with real life video.
True.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, what shows have you got currently running? Sorry,
like just give up.
Sorry, Jay.
Cartoons offend you, just give up. Just give up on life.
Sorry, buddy. I keep talking over you. I think there's a delay on the thing. I was going to ask, what shows do you have currently running at the moment, which people can download and take a look at?
Stepdads is on Amazon Prime right now. You can check that out. I have 3 films on Tubi TV. Not another zombie movie, not another black movie, and Shots Fired are all streaming on Tubi TV.
Okay.
So Tubi TV, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you end up on Tubi TV?
I went through 2 distribution companies. One is SGL Entertainment, and the other one is Maverick Entertainment. So they made it possible. They put it on a lot of different platforms, and Tubi and Amazon Prime are like the more popular platforms they got it on.
That's cool. So is it tough to kind of get on one of those platforms? I mean, it kind of walk through the audience, those aspiring filmmakers that say, hey, one day I want to be just like Jay Davis and I want to make films or whatever. And of course, I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into making all these films, but, eventually there's so many people that want to get out there and they want to make films. And then they see somebody like you that's made these films and you're getting them out there and all that. To kind of tell everybody what that struggle is, that process is to be able to get it into some kind of a distribution channel where people can actually see it.
Well, okay. So Amazon Prime, you can do it yourself. It's different channels you can go through. You can go through a portal called Amazon Direct, and you can upload the movie, your own film yourself. You got to create like a caption file. Put credits in the movie. You have to do everything, and they have to accept it. So it's still a submission process, and they have to accept it. They're going to give you a yay or nay. It takes about 90 to 100 days for them to approve most films. And then other channels like, say, like a Netflix or Hulu, those you can't go direct. You have to go through like an aggregator, which is like a distribution company, and you send them their film, and they have a relationship with, say, a Hulu or Netflix, and they're like the mediator between the two. So they'll sell your film for you. They take their percentage and give you a percentage.
So basically everybody's got their hand out, right? It's like, hey, if you're going to go on Netflix, go on Hulu, then hey, give me a little bit of that money. Give me a little bit of that money. Even though I didn't do any work, Jay Davis is the one out there doing all the work, but let me have a little bit of that profit here. Let me have a little bit of that profit there, just so we can get the film out. Yeah.
Yeah, grease the palms.
There you go. There you go.
Now, what have you been doing promotionally since we last spoke? I know you've been building your social media presence and stuff, but with everybody still kind of sitting at home and watching a lot of TV and pretending it's still the lockdown, you've got a pretty much captive audience there. What have you been doing promotionally wise?
I've been buying a lot of social media ads, and they don't cost much. That I like actually send your video out to people who like are interested in comedy or horror or cartoons, and like whatever they're interested in. They have an algorithm, and Instagram like puts that on those people's feed. So you pay like a $40, $50, depending on how many clicks you want, and it just sends your content out to people.
I mean, it's amazing, kind of like you alluded to with the, people sitting at home just watching TV or whatever. Yeah. When they're not watching TV, they're on their social media, right? I mean, that's what they're doing. They're scrolling through their phones or their iPads or something like that. And I think there's even people now that actually look at their social media on the television as well.
Yeah. And, it's like when I don't see people holding a phone, I'm assuming they have a gun. Right. Like everyone has their phone in their hand.
Right. Right. Yeah. You got to be careful with all that. So do you have anything right now, you know, kind of bouncing around in your brain in the pipeline that you're thinking about, hey, you know, here's the next thing that I want to go ahead and start producing, start directing, start writing, you know, whatever that creative process is?
Right now I'm in a process of putting on a live show. God willing, like nothing gets shut down in October. It's based off of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Robert Townsend. He made a show like 30 years ago called Partners in Crime. It features stand-up comedians, live performances, and sketch comedy. And he like opened the door for like the Wayans family and a lot of comedians, David Allen Greer, Tommy Davidson, and he taped a live show. So that's what we're gearing up to do in October.
Cool, man.
My version of that.
Yeah. Right. So you're going to do a live show. Is it going to be just audience only, or are you going to also try to stream it online?
It's going to be audience only because we're going to record it. So it's going to be audience only, and then we're going to record it, package it up, and try to pitch it.
Nice. Are you going to be in the show, or are you going to be just kind of sitting in the wings, directing everything?
I'm going to be in the show. I'm going to be featured in most of the sketches. And I'm gonna make an appearance here and there.
Now, has that become easier as you've gone on? Because I remember you were saying that that it's not always natural when you're on camera as opposed to doing stand-up. Because when you're on camera, you know, you don't get that same feel as in front of a live audience. Have you found now being on camera a little bit easier? The more stuff you've recorded?
Oh yeah, it's a lot easier. You get a lot of different opportunities to mess up and correct yourself. So it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I know that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like with the podcast. I mean, here we are. We're finally kind of converting over to a real video podcast, and you know, we're kind of nervous with it too. It's easy to hide behind a microphone. It's like the
now you gotta look
joke
at people.
with, you know, the old joke with radio or whatever. Hey, you got a face for radio and all of this stuff because you can hide behind. We can make little motions to each other and say, hey, no, okay, it's your turn and blah, blah, blah. And now when you turn a camera on, you can't do that anymore. You know, it's kind of tough once you get in front of a camera because everybody's seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, I've tried scratching my balls down to about once every 2 minutes.
Well, and it's also good that you actually are wearing clothes for these now. Yeah, that was getting a little uncomfortable after a while.
Going bottomless on the radio.
Yeah, you know, because Winnie the Pooh in it, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, other than that, anything else on the horizon? Any kind of teasers you can throw at us?
I'm creating, with the last short we shot, what is it? EDYH. I'm creating like a monster verse, so to speak. So it's based off, you know, classic horror creatures like the Wolfman, Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde, yeah. So it's based
on
I
think it would be cool if you actually did Heckle and Jekyll.
Heckle and Hyde.
Yeah. Oh, Heckle and Jay. We're helping you out here. Do Heckle and Jay. I mean, why not? Yeah. You know, you dress up in a little bird suit and everything. I mean, that might be fun.
Which part of Jekyll and Hyde involved a bird suit?
No, that's Heckle and Jekyll, the birds.
Oh, I've never heard of them, mate. I've never heard of them.
You never heard of Heckle and Jekyll?
No.
The bird. They were Looney Tunes birds, right, Jay?
Yeah.
I don't know. What cartoon?
Like crows or something like that?
Yeah, I think they were crows. It's got to be Looney Tunes, right? It's got to be Looney Tunes. And it was Heckle and Jekyll, the birds.
Never heard of them.
Well, see, that's what you get for growing up in England.
They were cancelled early over there.
Apparently so.
They canceled them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make separate movies and bring all these creatures together and make one big film. So that's the plan.
So where did you get interested in kind of the horror part that you wanted to go ahead and, you know, look at some of those old school, you know, the Wolfman, Dracula, all that stuff? I mean, what kind of spurred you on with that?
Well, like I've always watched it because my mother used to force me to watch it and scare the shit out of me when I was younger. Like when I was like 4, I was watching like Nightmare on Elm Street type stuff. But my buddy Omar, the cinematographer, he's really into the horror genre, and he was like, "Hey man, can you write something for me? I'm like horror stuff for us to shoot." I'm like, "All right, I can do that." So it's easy. I've been seeing people get murdered for a long time.
So are you looking to make it scary, or are you looking to make it funny?
I'm looking to make it scary. Like the last one we did, that was the hardest part. When we did the CCTV, no one believed that it was a horror movie, and we had to like actually go back and shoot other teasers and actually murder someone. Just say, look, this is a horror movie, it's not a comedy. So that was the hardest part about the first one we shot.
Gotcha. So, horror or comedy, which one's harder to write?
Comedy, especially
Really?
now. Yeah, now it's like you can offend people, but it has to be funny. If that makes sense. You can be offensive, but it has to be funny, and everyone has to get it.
Yeah.
Like I made a joke. I did like a politically correct bank robbery sketch, and my buddy was like, I made fun of like, I didn't make fun of, but I had a person in a wheelchair, and they're like, well, if you're gonna do that, you got to actually have a real handicapped person. So I like knew a real handicapped actor. I'm like, hey man, check the script out. Let me know what you think. And he thought it was funny. I'm like, well, if he liked it, it's okay because he's handicapped already. So.
Right. I remember years ago, my dad had a friend that was a stuntman in Hollywood, and he ended up with like cancer in his leg or something, and they had to amputate his leg below the knee. And he actually ended up with more stunt work in Hollywood because he had a fake leg. And so they didn't have to use CGI or anything like that. He ended up getting so much more work because he already had, half a leg missing. So in war movies or things like that, it was easy to blow his leg off because he didn't have a leg. So they put the fake leg underneath and then blow the leg off, and it was the fake leg that they could blow off. And he's like, all of a sudden I'm really busy right now doing a lot of war movies. So
he was laying there with his missing leg screaming.
I don't know if that's the way I'd want to get my big break, though. Really.
No, not so much.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not your plan
A. I'd rather go ahead and keep all my body parts versus getting stunt work in Hollywood.
So, Jay, did your mom used to show you horror movies as a bit of a warning kind of thing? Like, Jay, if you don't get your ass to bed, Freddy going to come get you?
It was more like we had one TV and you're watching what I'm watching. So that's pretty much it. I'm like, all right. And it's like you either go to sleep or watch this. So I watch that. It's terrifying.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, I grew up in a one TV household for years, and I watched Dallas and Dynasty with my parents, growing up because that's what they were watching. So I had to watch those shows, and that's what you do. I mean, nowadays with kids with their iPads and their iPhones or whatever, they're watching YouTube and they get to watch whatever they want. There's no sitting around in the living room and, saying, hey, here's what's on TV. On Sunday afternoon, it was the Dallas Cowboys in my house. You were watching the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday afternoon during football season, and that's how I grew up a Cowboys fan. I mean, I watched every Cowboys game during the Cowboys season, so it makes total sense.
Now, do you find...
I was introduced to Porky's. You remember the movie Porky's?
Yeah.
I was introduced to Porky's, and I still was peeing in the bed. I don't think I should have been watching that stuff.
But you got to admit, and of course, depending on how you were watching these movies, I'm guessing like on the VCR or something like that. But I remember watching some movies with my parents growing up, like the movie Airplane, right? And I would laugh at certain parts of Airplane, but then my parents would laugh at certain parts, and I'd turn around and look at them like, why is this funny? And then fast forward 20 years and you watch the movie again, you're like, oh, now I know why my parents were laughing at this movie, because that is funny now that I actually understand the humor behind it. Because as a kid, you don't understand some of the adult jokes.
Yeah, now do you find that with going into horror, it's a little bit easier now because what you'd describe as horror has changed a lot. I mean, it used to be either slasher horror or very, very kind of supernatural ghost is haunting your house type stuff. But now you can get things which traditionally would never have been considered horror. I mean, you take movies which did well on Netflix, like Bird Box, and some of the newer ones which have come out. I mean, they would have been more kind of suspense or thriller than horror, but now they seem to
suspense thriller.
Genre. So, I mean, I know with comedy, it can be seen as a failure if people aren't laughing at it, unless your movie is kind of darkly comical or, ironic. People will come out of a comedy judging it by how much they laugh. But with horror now, you don't have to scare people and make them jump, which used to be the criteria of a horror movie. If it didn't make you jump, then how was that a horror movie, right? So now you have a little bit more artistic license. So I think you kind of join in the horror thing because you've got so many different directions you can go with it. And you can still actually make a horror movie which has some obvious comedy in it, but it can still end up setting out what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong. People have like drifted away from. It's like it's okay to make people think, no matter what you're doing creatively. Make people think. Stop making stuff easy for people. Let them think about the plot a little bit.
Yeah, because like all horror movies, I think made prior to 1990 was basically just an adult version of Scooby-Doo, because the characters were that dumb, the plots were always that predictable, and it was very linear. I mean, there were no side stories,
but not The Exorcist.
Well, that was different because that was based on something completely different. I mean, in terms of writing, how they would write the script for the movies, they were always the same.
But see, to me, I don't think The Exorcist is a horror film. But a lot of people do, because there's scary parts in it, but I don't think it's a horror film. I don't think Signs, the movie with M. Night Shyamalan, I don't think that's a horror film, but a lot of people think it's
that's not a horror film. That's like a suspense,
thriller, something like that. But Exorcist, I mean, Jay, is that a horror film?
I think it's been classified as a horror film just because of the time. But if you compare that to like Friday the 13th, it's like totally different movies or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if, just because you're scared doesn't necessarily make it a horror film.
Yeah.
Well, I will say the scariest movie I've ever seen, High School Musical. To me, that is the biggest horror film ever made. That scared me to death. High School Musical, that's a scary movie.
Part 3 was okay.
It wasn't. No, actually, the scariest thing I ever saw live, and I know, Jay, you're talking about doing some, live shows or whatever, but comedy, of course. But the scariest thing I ever saw live, My Little Pony live. If you ever see these huge dressed up as My Little Pony dancing on a stage, I was scared to death.
Bronies.
Yeah, it was worse than that. It was worse than Bronies. It was so scary to watch these adults dressed up in My Little Pony costumes, dancing around and singing. I told my wife, I said, I seriously, I need to get out of here. I'm scared to death of these fake ponies dancing around and singing. It scared me to death.
I saw Dracula on ice.
Dracula on ice.
Yeah, ice skating. Everybody was ice skating.
Dracula on ice.
Yeah. They had a bit of trouble with the Carpathian Mountains reenacting that bit of it, but
Yeah, well, did they switch to skis?
No.
No. Kept it on skates.
Yeah, kept it all on skates. Plus, there was singing in it as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Why does everything on ice have to do with musicals?
Because most people who do it also appreciate musicals, if you catch my drift.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Did you catch that drift, Jay?
Why can't it just be like, Dracula on the beach or something like that?
Well, there you go, Jay. There's your new genre. Everything that you need to do now is everything on the beach. Rather than on ice, just say, hey, Dracula on the beach.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think the fact that he's not like being on Sunshine might have screwed that bit up.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I get that. Well,
what's that alien you guys got? What
that's our beer sponsor, Jay. Alien Ale.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've got our kegerator. You know, you're the first one. We've done some video stuff before, but you're the first one to actually be on here with our new camera setup and all this good stuff going. So yeah, we've got our kegerator in the back with Alien Ale, and you know, so we just go back there to the kegerator and fill our cup up. You know, Tristan's not drinking right now because it's not quite time for him to start drinking yet. He's more responsible than I am, basically. So, yeah, back to our kegerator, and our beer sponsor provides us with our beer, and you get it in Aurora, Texas, which do a little research on Aurora, Texas. There was a alien spacecraft that crash landed back in the 1800s, late 1800s. So that's why it's alien. Oh no, that really happened. And so that's where they got the name for it, Alien Ale. So yeah, that's our beer sponsor. So yeah, I'm drinking Alien Ale right now.
Do you all think that pause was too long?
Nice product placement, guys.
When we stopped talking and I just kind of looked at your drink like that, I was hoping Jay was going to say something.
Oh,
because I was staring at your drink and the label.
Oh, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Hey, what are you gonna do?
Right.
You guys haven't got canceled yet, right?
Not yet.
I'm not sure if we'd know though. This is the thing. It might take about 6 months before we discover.
Well, it takes us like 2 weeks to return an email. I mean, how long has it been since since the three of us have talked? And we've shot messages back and forth, and how horrible the Wolf and I are responding to text messages and emails. So we probably would be still doing this, and like a year later, we'd find out we were canceled, and we'd be like, "Oh, I wish somebody would have told us," and they would have said, "Hey, all you had to do was check your email. That's when you got canceled, or your social media accounts or something like that." Because we're terrible keeping up with that. So
you got canceled for talking about canceling people.
Yeah, exactly. How ironic would that be, right? So
the only emails we actually open are ones with attachments because we're just hoping it's boobs.
Yeah,
some female fans
that are viruses. We love computer viruses, so we want to see if we can get a computer virus.
Piss off, Norton. What do you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, John McAfee went to prison or died or whatever. So nobody cares about viruses.
His grave if he saw what we opened.
Absolutely. So, well, Jay, hey, it was so great catching up with you. Can you give us a rundown on how everybody can get a hold of you, follow all your projects, and all that good stuff?
Simple. Just follow me on social media. It's Jay Davis, Jay Davis TP on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, and go on my website, jdavisfilms.com.
Very good, man. Well, we certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to catch up with us, and we're looking forward to all your new projects. Everything you do is funny. It's creative. We love you, man.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best, and good luck to you. And we look forward to catching up with you again after all this stuff comes out. And, I mean, you're a great content creator. You keep pumping stuff out that is excellent to watch, and we certainly appreciate it. And with all that said, thanks for tuning into this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd podcast. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, thewolfandtheshepherd.com, to your friends and colleagues. And please leave us a positive review on iTunes when you get a chance. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for additional content. Join us next time for another episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd.